Welcome back to another short Legacy League where we have Mono Black Pox versus Cephalid Breakfast. A huge thank you to the Patreon supporters who are helping the league and YouTube channel. If you would like to become a supporter, please click on the link in the show notes. If you've been enjoying our content, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Welcome to Game 1 with Dan on the play. Both players have kept 7, and we'll see Dan lead off on a Misty Rainforest, shuffle some cards around, and fetch an island. We'll see one of those new ponders from the Mystery Boosters 2 at home thing. Festival in a Box at home thingy. Anyway, so I don't want to get too carried away on that side. Just an apology, a heads up to Dan, because I'm super psyched that Pox is being played right now, so I'm going to be all in on this. I played Pox myself personally for a good stint, and I am truly a lover and believer of the mono black Smallpox deck. So big fan, big fan. Dan coming out with a Shuko and passing back over to Ezer. Ezer picks up a sinkhole, different art, and immediately fires it off over at Dan on his basic island. There's also, it looks like a Smallpox in Ezer's hand, as well as a few other cards. It's kind of hard to see with him flipping around so quickly, but hopefully he can make something out of this. Dan playing the Cephalid Breakfast version with Nadu. We have seen this on camera before, and how explosive and quickly it can go off. And we'll see 2 mana, and there's a Cephalid Illusionist. Right on time to ruin the day. Not having any instant speed removal for Ezer is going to be a little tough, and we're probably going to see this game end right meow. So it looks like he's going to start activating and working through his deck here, 3 cards at a time, by just constantly re-equipping to the Cephalid Illusionist. No need to unequip it from somewhere else. It can keep targeting it over and over again. We'll see some Narcomoebas come out piece by piece. The idea here is he mills through his entire deck, finds the Dread Return, and then returns the Thassa's Oracle from the graveyard to the battlefield with no cards left in hand, or in his deck, I should say. And the downside to this is that he has to do it at sorcery speed as opposed to instant speed. So there, if Ezer had any disruption to offset maybe a Surgical Extraction main deck, which he doesn't have, we could see him handle this. But Dan did add Memory's Journey to his deck, so now he has a little bit more agency on the game number 2. If you've been enjoying our content, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Game number 2, Ezer's kept 7 on the play, and Dan is on 5. Ezer's going to lead off on a Thoughtseize. Very quickly taking a peek to see what Dan has to do here, and I think Ponder would probably be the better choice, and that is what he's going to go with. So Dan is up a game after we saw the shellacking he put onto Ezer with a turn 2 or turn 3, his turn 3, Cephalid Illusionist into a Shuko combo for the win. Now Pox can fight back against that post-board with Grafdigger's Cages and a few other tricks up their sleeve. But let's see if Ezer's going to be able to do that. He has a Bowmaster at end step. Let's see what Dan has for that. Looks like he's going to fire off an Emergency Brainstorm, which he does. Ezer, assuming that the Bowmaster resolves, but it does get Daze, pushing Dan back another land. So with the Smallpox in hand, he could very easily Smallpox Dan off that land up front, and then Wasteland him the following turn, or just play another Wasteland and get a map in play. Smallpox in hand, map in play, and it looks like a Grafdigger's Cage in hand as well. We'll see Ezer go ahead and crack that map, grabbing an Urza Saga and passing back over to Dan. Dan's going to fetch in the end step, picking up a basic island to avoid those Wastelands that are in play. But if a Sinkhole shows up, that's going to be a little different. Got to ponder from Dan, see if he can find something that he likes. There is an Urza Saga in that mix, but with 2 Wastelands just hanging out on the battlefield, not something he really wants to put into play at the moment. All right, Ezer has some decisions to make with that Smallpox, that Saga, and it looks like I want to say it's a Grafdigger's Cage in his hand. I can't quite tell. He does flip through quite quickly. And it looks like he's going to play that Saga. And let's see if he wants to fire off this. Yes, it is. All right. He fires off the Cage. Dan is slowly building up his mana base again. And now we see a Nomads and Core. We might see a Smallpox here is able to take a land out with a creature and a discard card. And then Ezra will be able to replay another Yawgmoth thingy. And still have mana up for the Saga. So let's see how he wants to play this. So, yep. And definitely going to drop the swamp making land that I can't remember, even though I used to play it all the time. And replay the other one and back over to Dan. Dan is definitely on the cups here on lands, but he does have the Sagas. He does have the Tropical Island, so he's ahead on lands. Not ahead, but in parity, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. And we'll see a Nadu come into play one turn afterwards. But got that Nomad off the battlefield just in time to take advantage. So another construct in play. Wasteland on the Saga. And we've got some beatdowns happening with these constructs being 4/4s. Anytime Dan finds something like a Shuko or Nomads and Core, this Nadu is off to the races. And the Pox deck will get buried very quickly. So Ezra needs to be aware of that. Fire off another Wasteland on the other Saga, keeping it in check, and then we'll see a swing out for 8 total. Let's see what Ezra wants to do here. I imagine we have a Needle either on Shuko or Nomads and Core, and we'll see a Smallpox. Dan's going to wrap it up. Welcome back to Game 3, and we have Dan on the play who kept 7, and so did Ezra. This was a commanding game by Pox by just staying just ahead of the Nadu deck. And let's see if Ezra's going to be able to hold that together one more time. So I'm going to lead off with a Thoughtseize right away. Let's see a Serenity, Shuko, and those are the only two that can be taken. So he's going to take a peek at Serenity here from Weatherlight originally. It can be played on Dan's turn, and then during his upkeep, it'll pop off and destroy some enchantments and artifacts that are in play. It's pretty good against Ezra because he does play quite a few artifacts, not that many enchantments anymore in the Pox deck, as it's no longer really playing Chains or Abyss anymore, but it's leaning more towards a control-y deck by getting rid of their mana, as with Sinkholes, Wastelands, and then using Crucible of Worlds as well. We'll see a Mishra's Factory, still a namesake in the deck, fastest Thoughtseize ever to get rid of that Nadu, taking apart the combo quite quickly, and a pass back over to Dan more than likely is going to happen. Ezra ready with a Wasteland and a Crucible in hand for these Sagas that Dan has to play. I'm not sure if Ezra is actually on any Ancient Tombs, so I don't know if he has any acceleration for Dan here. But he definitely is going to fire off a Wasteland. He does also have a Sinkhole in hand, so if he puts the swamp making land into play, he'll be able to Sinkhole off that Mishra's Factory as well. I think his goal here should be to keep these Sagas off the battlefield. Bowmaster in step, no recourse from Dan, and we are on the board with a creature. Mishra's Factory in play, found a Karn, and let's see if he's going to Sinkhole that other Saga, and he does. No Force of Will, Force of Negation, Daze. All right. 2 more over at Dan, and Ezra staying just ahead here. He resolves that Crucible next turn, and then Wastelands are turned on for the rest of the game on every turn. Karn can go get Liquid Metal Coating. If we can ramp up some mana, we can even get a Lattice. We'll see how Ezra wants to play this. He's going to play the Crucible out. No fear of a Daze or Force of Will. Dan says it's going to resolve. Dan's got to get that Serenity in play this turn. 2 more coming over. And back over to Dan. No fetch. Not sure what he's looking for off the top of his deck at this point that could truly get him back in this game, except for a Nadu and a Shuko, or a Nadu and a Nomads and Core here. I mean, he very easily could just stack up a Cephalid and a Nomad, or Cephalid and a Shuko, and just win the game off rip. So we're going to see a Swords of Plowshare on the Bowmaster. And let's see, another Sinkhole for that basic Plains. That's got to hurt. And one more thing. Oh, wow. Okay, so we got a Smallpox here wiping out another land from Dan here. Choose to drop the fetch, knowing that the Wasteland cannot be, or that the island can't be wastelanded, and he's already burned 2 Sinkholes. Most Pox decks typically only play 3 Sinkholes. Some have come completely off of them in lieu of other denial strategies. But it's always great to see a Pox deck playing Sinkhole. It's absolutely fantastic. All right, we got a Saga running now. We have a Mistress Factory in play, and there is a Karn. Still nothing from Dan's side. He's running out of counter magic here. We're going to see the Karn tick up on the Crucible and put 3 damage over onto Dan's side. Dan finds a land. Let's see if he can find a creature to truly get going here. He's got to get something on the board. Otherwise, this Karn will take over the game with Wastelands and Liquid Metal Coatings. Ezra goes to find that said Liquid Metal Coating, and he's going to just throw that into play. Take a peek at his sideboard, but Liquid Metal Coating is what he wants, because now it's basically, for this turn, it will be a Rishadan Port, and then the following turns, it'll be a Sinkhole on demand. Power up the factory, and we're on our way. 6 life left, and Liquid Metal Coating is being used, all right, at end step. So, all right, we saw a natural Narcomoeba scry or surveil off of the Overcity sewers. It's being turned off by the Liquid Metal Coating. Saga in play, not going to last long here with the Karn in play. So, and a Wasteland. So Ezra's got the Wasteland for the Meticulous Archives, as well as Liquid Metal Coating for the Saga. So we'll see 2 lands come off the battlefield this turn. Up 3. No need to really push constructs. You can just get there with the factory. So we'll see on Float of Mana, get a Bauble, Wasteland on the Saga, Liquid Metal Coating on, and an uptick on Karn on the Meticulous Archives. Thoughtseize. Let's see what else he finds. Cephalid. Want to get rid of that right away. And we have a Retrofitter Foundry. All of my favorite hits when I played Pox. And the Bauble is a newer piece added, which is pretty nice for the 0-drop stuff. And the Force Wheels and so forth like that. So I can see why I'd be playing 1 Vexing Bauble in the deck as well. So that's pretty cool. All right, this creature is not long for this world, as well as that land that Dan has to play. Probably just see a power up on the factory and a power up on the, and stand up on the Crucible. Nope, no stand up, and we'll see an attack for 2. Perhaps, yes. 2 coming over on the factory. Dan goes to 3. I definitely could have seen Ezra using the Liquid Metal Coating more as a Rishadan Port instead of blowing up the land. But I can see both sides of it. Got a Wasteland coming out for that. Another power up on the Saga and a stand up on the Crucible. See a block on the Crucible. Dan goes to 1. Can Dan turn this around with no lands in play and at 1 life? He cannot. Thanks for watching. See you next time. If you've been enjoying our content, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below.